The information in this video is important to your continued employment with Delta. If you have any questions at all about the material covered, please write your questions down during the video so you will remember to ask them at the end of this orientation session. The following health and safety practices, work rules, and regulations are for your protection. As a condition of employment, you must comply with all the health and safety practices and work rules and procedures outlined here. Nothing is more important than human life, your life. So naturally, our greatest concern is your safety while on the job. Together, with your personal commitment and ours, we can create a safe and accident-free working environment. Your family and loved ones are counting on you coming home every day injury-free. Understanding and following these procedures can ensure we all do just that. Preventing accidents and injury with communication. Proper and complete communication is one of the most important parts of safety on the job. A vital piece of communication regarding on-the-job safety is called the Job Safety Analysis, or JSA. Each day, the foreman is required to fill out a JSA that explains the tasks on hand, any possible hazards you may encounter throughout the workday, and ways to prevent injury. At the beginning of your shift, you are required to read and sign in on this JSA, stating that you understand the safety precautions and have the training to perform assigned tasks incident-free. If you do not understand anything covered on the JSA, it is your responsibility to communicate with the foreman to clear things up before you begin working on your assigned job tasks. At the end of the day, you must sign out on the JSA, stating that you have worked safely, without accident, and are going home injury-free. If by chance you do get hurt in any way on the job after you've signed in for the day, your foreman must be notified immediately, and it must be marked on the JSA exactly what occurred and when. Do not sign out after there has been a safety incident without telling your foreman and making the required notes on the JSA. If any type of accident occurs, even if minor, and no physical damage or injury is apparent, it's important to report this to your foreman as well and note it on the JSA. You are responsible for communicating with your foreman immediately after any incident. Personal protection equipment. Delta Safety Plan and OSHA requirements fully outline which type of personal protection equipment must be worn under what circumstances, and you are required to know and abide by these regulations. The following is a basic list of some of those requirements. A hard hat and safety glasses must be worn at all times within the confines of the work area. Extra safety equipment, such as a face shield, clear or dark, gloves, earplugs, protective clothing, etc., may be required for specific jobs. If you wear prescription eyeglasses, you must wear side shields or goggles at all times to prevent eye injuries. Hearing protection may be necessary when working near jackhammers, demolition hammers, and other excessively loud noises. Hearing loss does not happen right away. It happens gradually over time. By the time you realize you have a hearing problem, it may be too late. There's no cure for damaged eardrums. If you don't use ear protection now, your only choice later could be hearing aids. And if the problem is too severe, even those may not help. 3-inch sleeves are required on all shirts. No cut-off shirt sleeves are allowed. Long pants are required and must be free of large holes or excessive tears. Steel-toed or composite toe boots are required on all jobs. Housekeeping. At Delta, housekeeping is everyone's responsibility. Good housekeeping promotes a safe, healthy, and clean workplace and is ultimately the responsibility of each and every Delta employee. The following is a basic list of general housekeeping practices. Keep all tools and working materials properly stored. Keep stairways, walkways, and the floor clear of tools, extension cords, lumber, rebar, etc. This prevents tripping hazards. Extension cords should be hung 7 feet off the floor or laid on the ground with appropriate covering that prevents damage or a tripping hazard. All protruding nails in lumber must be removed or flattened immediately. Store trash, waste, and scrap in the correct containers. In general, if you see something lying around that could be hazardous, is not properly stored or disposed of, it is your shared responsibility to ensure it is taken care of. Slip and trip prevention. Keep your eyes on the path you're walking on. The work we do involves many pieces of equipment, holes, pits, and the like. Keep your eyes peeled at all times. Clean up any spills immediately, and if needed, while cleaning is in progress, mark them appropriately as potentially hazardous. Walk at a steady pace. Never run. Use only designated walkways and access routes provided. To do otherwise to save a few minutes may put you in an extremely dangerous situation. If you detect a slip or trip hazard, correct it immediately. If you cannot correct it immediately, mark or barricade the area so coworkers can avoid the hazard. Safe equipment operation. Do not attempt to operate any equipment without the proper training or permits. Do not think you are doing anyone any favors. The moment you damage something or someone, it's too late. If you were certified through another company to operate certain equipment, you are not okay to operate that equipment as a Delta employee. All operator training and permits must be through Delta and are specific to each machine or piece of equipment. All vehicles must have a working backup alarm. A flagman or spotter must be used whenever a vehicle or piece of equipment is being backed into a building or congested area. This is in addition to the backup alarm. Any truck, trailer, or piece of equipment being worked on for any reason must have the wheels chocked. This includes any work being done, not just when you need to crawl under it. There are no exceptions. Fire prevention. Smoking is allowed only in designated areas. All job sites are different. You will have to check with the foreman on the job as to where the designated areas are. Store flammable materials in properly labeled containers and only in designated areas. All flammable materials must be kept 35 feet away from any ignition source, cutting, welding, grinding, etc. A fire extinguisher must be kept within 25 feet of any cutting, welding, grinding, torching, etc. All fire extinguishers are required to be inspected on a regular basis and should be kept in a stand and not on the ground. Storing fire extinguishers on the ground where they can easily be knocked and broken also makes them harder to spot in an emergency. If the safety tie that holds the clip on a fire extinguisher is broken, the extinguisher needs to be taken out of service. If, for some reason, you take a fire extinguisher out of service, do not throw it away. Bring it to the office so we can have it tested and recharged. Pouring concrete safely. All employees working in the concrete must wear rubber boots. If your skin or clothing comes in contact with wet concrete for any amount of time, it must be washed off as quickly as possible to avoid concrete burns. No employee should ever enter the concrete without the proper protective boots. Fall protection. Falls are the leading cause of fatalities in the construction industry and have resulted primarily from unprotected sides and edges, wall openings, improper scaffolding, unguarded protruding rebar, and misuse of ladders. The following are the basic safety measures to prevent and protect against falls. Everyone who is working or walking on a surface 6 feet or more above a lower level is required to have fall protection. This means you must be protected by the use of a guardrail or tied off on a body harness with lanyards or a retractable lanyard. Guardrails are the preferred method of fall protection. They are normally made of 2x4s and have a top rail, mid-rail, and toe kick. The top rail should always be 42 inches or more above finish floor and should be able to support 200 pounds of downward-outward pressure. The mid-rail should always be 21 inches or more high and be able to withstand 150 pounds of downward or outward pressure. The toe kick must be installed at floor level to prevent anything from getting kicked over the ledge to the lower level and causing damage or injury. If a guardrail system will not work, The employee must wear a full body harness and be tied off to a structure that will support 5,000 pounds. There are several ways to tie off, including lanyards, retractables, and straps. Make sure you discuss the proper method with your foreman. Structures used as anchor points must be at the worker's shoulder level or higher so as to limit any free fall to 6 feet or less and prevent contact with the lower level. You must be tied off 100%. Body harnesses and lanyards must be inspected by an experienced and competent person before each use. Defective tie-off equipment should be tagged and immediately removed from service. In most cases, body harnesses and lanyards are considered personal property. They are not company-issued, but Delta and your foreman have the ultimate say as to whether or not your harness and equipment meet safety regulations. If you are working in a man lift, you must be tied off to the anchor points in the basket, never the guardrail. If you are in a scissor lift, you do not have to be tied off unless you are wearing a harness. If you are wearing a harness, you must use it and be tied off. Rod caps must be installed on all vertical rebar and nail pins on which someone could fall and impale themselves. In some cases, a 2x4 can be tied off along the top of the rebar to prevent this from happening. Safe power tools operation. Power tools should not be operated without the proper training or instruction. Every power tool is to be inspected before use for any damage, loose or missing parts, broken parts, guards, and cut, pulled, or frayed cords. If there are any problems, it is your responsibility to communicate to the foreman and tag the tool out of service so no one else can use it. Also, make sure it gets brought to the office so it can be repaired. All grinders must have the guards on them. If you have to remove the guard for any reason, put it back on right after you are done so the next person can use it safely. All tools must be used with the proper working guard, attachment, or shield recommended by the manufacturer. While using a grinder or chop saw, you must wear a face shield over your glasses. A GFCI must be used whenever plugged into temporary power or in wet conditions. It is considered temporary power when using if you are using an extension cord or using a welder as the power source. Never hoist any tools by the cords. Use a rope if needed. Manual lifting precautions. Know the weight of the object before you attempt to lift it. Do not lift something that is too heavy or requires 2 people. Back injuries that put you out of work are not worth it. When lifting over 50 pounds, you should always get help. Always keep the load close to your body. Squat down to the load, keep your back straight, and use your legs to lift the load. If you must turn with the load, change the position of your feet. Do not twist your back. If you are carrying the load with a partner, let him know when you are going to release the load. Use gloves whenever cuts, abrasions, punctures, or burns are possible. Mechanical lifting procedures. All rigging shall be performed only by qualified employees. You must know the weight of the object to be lifted. You must know the capacity of any straps, cables, or hardware to be used. You must know the crane capacity. All rigging and hardware must be inspected before use. The capacity tags on the cables must be kept at the top, on the hook, never on the bottom near the load. This protects them from getting ripped off or damaged. If the tags are removed or are not legible, the rigging needs to be removed from service. You must be able to tell the capacity of the rigging being used. Softeners must be used to protect the straps and cables from being damaged or cut when going around sharp corners. Do not stand or have any part of your body under a suspended load. A tagline should be used to control the load while in the air and being moved. Make sure all hooks have a safety latch if needed. All hooks with a hole near the throat are supposed to have a safety latch on them. If you're not sure, ask. Never pinch the straps between the floor and the load. Lockout procedures. The power source of any equipment, machine, or tool being repaired where an unintended release of energy could cause personal injury shall be locked out or unplugged by the employee doing the work. After locking out the power source, the employee should try to turn on the equipment, machine, or tool to ensure no unintended motion will occur. If a tool is in need of repair, it must be tagged out of service and brought back to the office. If the tool is not tagged, there is a possibility someone else could try to use it and get injured. Employees must ask for assistance from their foreman or supervisor if they are unsure of where or how to lock out the equipment. Welding and cutting safety. As we mentioned earlier, a fire extinguisher must be kept within 25 feet of the area where the cutting or welding is being done. This includes using grinders and chop saws to cut steel, as this will create sparks. The proper welding shield, gloves, and sleeves must be worn while welding. The proper dark glasses or dark shield, gloves, and sleeves must be worn while torching. Again, all flammable materials must be kept 35 feet away from any ignition source. When torching, make sure that the compressed gas cylinders, gauges, and hoses are clear from sparks, oil, and grease. Make sure your hands are free from grease when removing the gauges. You could get severely burned. All torches are to be equipped with spark arresters at the gauges. All torch carts must have a 1-hour firewall between the bottles. When storing oxygen and acetylene, they need to be separated by at least 25 feet. Empty oxygen bottles are to be labeled MT and placed with the full oxygen bottles. Empty acetylene bottles are to be labeled MT and placed with the full acetylene bottles. Empty bottles are never considered to be empty unless they are cut in half. So, until verified as empty and cut in half, they must be stored with their full bottles. All tanks must be secured to a column or other stationary item to prevent them from being knocked over. If the gauges have the plastic cover broken or missing, they need to be removed and repaired. Torches must only be lit with friction lighters or other approved devices, never with matches, lighters, or hot work. Acetylene must never be transported, stored, or used with the cylinder lying down. This can result in the release of fluid acetone. Never store any cylinders near a confined space. The gauges can only stay on the tanks overnight if you intend to pull gas from them within 24 hours. If you do not plan on pulling any gas from them within 24 hours, the gauges must be removed and the caps put on. Ladder and stairway safety. The contributing factors of falls from ladders include ladder slip, top or bottom, overreaching, slipping on the rungs or steps, defective equipment, and even improper ladder selection for the given task. The following are some of the basic elements required for using ladders safely. Before using any ladder, it must be inspected for defects. Never use a ladder that has any defects. All ladders must be marked as a 1 or 1A ladder. No other ladders should be used unless it is a job site built ladder that was built per spec. During the setup, always have someone hold the ladder until the upper end of the ladder has been secured. The ladder must be tied off at the top and must extend at least 3 feet above finished floor. The ladder rung at floor level should be level with the floor. The ladder should extend out 1 foot for every 4 feet it extends up. Once the ladder is tied off at the top, it needs to be secured at the bottom. To do this, you anchor a 2x4 at the foot of the ladder. Always face the ladder while ascending and descending. Always maintain 3-point contact at all times. Do not carry materials while climbing. Use a tagline to raise or lower the materials needed. Never use a step ladder in the folded position as an upright ladder. Do not stand beyond the manufacturer's recommended upper step. Remember, as we mentioned earlier, the tie-off rule is 6 feet in height or more. If you need to perform a task while on a ladder from 6 feet, you must find a place to tie off. A retractable mounted somewhere above is going to be the safest bet. Sometimes finding a place to tie off to might seem impossible, but you can ask your foreman for suggestions if needed. No question is a dumb question. Excavations and trenches safety. Before any exterior excavation is started, the operator or foreman must make sure that misdig has been called and the area is properly marked out for any underground lines. Before any interior work is started, it should be cleared by the building owner or maintenance department. Any excavation of 5 feet or more must be stepped, sloped, or shored. There are no exceptions. The type of shoring to be used will be determined by the engineering department. All excavations 4 feet or more in depth must have a safe means of access and egress like a ladder. All ladders must be placed so that no employee has to travel no more than 25 feet to get access to the ladder. As mentioned earlier, ladders must extend 3 feet above the floor and be tied off. All excavated soils and materials shall be placed at least 2 feet from the edge. Safety data sheets. The SDS books have been updated and are located in the shop above the drinking fountains. All chemical information and safety precautions are in the SDS books. If you are using a chemical, please read the directions before use and follow the safety procedures recommended by the manufacturer. All chemicals that are put in a secondary container must be marked with the name of the chemical and the appropriate hazard warning, danger, warning, etc. A picture of the pictogram should also be marked on the container. Remember, the safety of you and your coworkers is the most important. If at any time you have questions regarding safety procedures, contact your safety supervisor. This concludes our safety training information video.